Orientation is locked. Rotate device back.
I hear Dexter
No,
snoring.
that should be right. We tried this. It should be right. God damn it. Did I go live? Oh. Okay.
Carrie and Amy having tech issues. Is it on me?
It's crooked.
Love it.
And
hey guys.
That's totally, and probably everyone heard me curse, sorry.
Oh no.
Because I didn't know we started. But basically, what we need to do, should we stay on vertical and just roll with it? Or should we start a new live horizontally? What does everyone think?
I think we should horizontal it.
Okay. When we horizontal it, won't be the same. Oh, good. Marquetta said she didn't hear me curse. That's good.
That's good. We don't do that here. That would be unprofessional.
We totally tried this a little bit ago, and it was working just fine.
Yeah.
And then now here we are, and I messed it up.
Are we just going to keep it vertical? We can sit closer together. That'll work.
I mean, there's like however many people in the chat.
Hi, everybody. Hope your Wednesday. It's Wednesday? Wednesday is going awesome.
Can we scoot back a little bit? So it wouldn't be us if we weren't having like mad technical issues, I guess. We had it set to go horizontal, but here we are in vertical mode.
I mean, Mike can even be off to the side because he's got the computer with it on.
Carrie and I are going to get close.
We're going to be cozy.
Hello, everyone.
Hello. It's Carrie and Amy from Turner's Warehouse.
From Turner's Warehouse.
And Dexter is here.
Dexter making noise. Hi, buddy. So today on the live that is vertical, unplanned. Sorry about that, guys. We're here to talk about like some of the things that we know because we've been doing it for a lot of years. Oh, I'm like, what's happening back there? Mike was moving the camera. Thanks, Mike. So Mike is on the chat today, so he'll be helping out with questions, which is weird for me because I'm normally in the chat.
Amy loves being in front of the camera.
I love being in front of the camera. It's super weird, but it's all right. We're going to roll with it. But we're going to go over some housekeeping things first before we get started. We were kind of talking about the open house and how awesome it was. We had a ton of folks come from out of town to visit us, which was amazing.
Yeah, the amount of people that came out, like Amy's usually the crier, and I was getting really emotional because the amount of support and our community that we have here is just, it's really touching, and we really appreciate everybody, our online community, as well as the people who came in person.
Yeah, it was awesome. If you haven't had a chance to watch those streams, we have Emily, Kate, Zach, and Jim. All of their streams are up in the live section on our page, so you can watch them back if you want to. They were really fun.
Yeah.
So check those out if you haven't.
Do we want to explain why Chad is missing?
Oh yeah, let's explain why Chad is missing.
So Chad, who you might know, he works here. He is on a little trip right now in Colorado, so he's chilly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's snowing, and I'm super jealous. It's supposed to be 80 out here today.
Yeah, he's actually doing a class with Stuart Batty. And he's having a lot of fun, and he's learning a lot, and hopefully we'll be able to take advantage of all the cool stuff that he's learning. So stay tuned for that, I guess.
He promised us all that we're going to be turning quite a bit more this year. I will scoot in.
We'll scoot cozy.
We're going to be cozy because we're vertical.
Yes.
We're going to the Desert Woodcarver show this weekend, so if you're local and you want to come out and check out the carving show. It's really fun. We're going to be there with Dan from Carvings by Dan. And there's a lot of amazing carvers there's a whole gallery. I'll try and do a video while I'm there. Last year on Saturday it was kind of busy, and I'm going to be solo there on Saturday since Chad is in Colorado. So I'll try and get a video in, and if I don't do a video on Saturday that's live, I definitely will do a video on Sunday that's live for everybody who's not local to like see the cool stuff in the gallery. But it's at the Mesa Convention Center. So if you're local and you want to come out, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and Dan was one of the people who was here at the open house out back, and he's an amazing carver. So if you're interested in carving, he's got some cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So today, or do you have more?
Well, I was telling Carrie before this started, I kind of wanted to tell the story of like the origin story of Turner's. And I know some of you guys know it, but maybe not everybody knows it. And I think it's a cool story. In probably, I think 2011, around 2011, Chad told me he was like working corporate job and he was like, Amy, I'm going to match my income and quit my job this year. And I was like, all right, let's do it. And he like hustled that whole year. He made a lot of pens and we sold a lot of pens and he did it. And then he quit his job. And then he was kind of rocking and rolling, making pins. He started out in the garage. Maybe a lot of you guys saw his early videos in our garage.
Which are hilarious.
They're pretty funny. It's fun to go back and look at those sometimes.
Like the amount of facial hair he had at that point is it's worth a watch.
He had a massive beard at the time. But Carrie was in and out of the country because she was like living down in Costa Rica, and I really wanted her to like be here. And Chad was like swamped to the point that he needed to hire someone. And I was like, Carrie and I were friends for like 20 years. Yeah. We've been friends. 20 years?
Yeah.
Probably longer. Probably longer than
Definitely
that.
longer.
Yeah. And I was like, Carrie's a photographer, like you should hire her. Because he's like, I can't keep up with all my Etsy listings and like taking photos of the pens. And I was like, you should hire Carrie. And he's like, but she'll leave. She'll go back to Costa Rica. And I was like, you should hire Carrie.
He made me promise that I wouldn't leave.
But anyway. So that's how that started.
And then I started working for him and doing all his product photography and like shipping and that kind of stuff so he could focus on making. And then he got this idea for Turner's Warehouse. And he's like, hey, do you want to help? And then 10 years later, I'm still working for him. Turner's has been going strong for 9 years, and yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty great. So like as far as expertise for product photography, Etsy, like all of that, Carrie's the whiz. Like she's the one who knows all of it, and she runs our entire website. She does all the photos for the website. So
no pressure.
Yeah. And then like I have done a ton of shows with Chad, so I can speak to the show aspect, which we've done some videos on that, but we thought we'd talk a little bit about that and hear from you guys. If you sell your work, like what works for you, like what success have you had, and how it's working. So if you do have questions or you have things to share, put them in the chat and Mike will shout them out to us.
Okay.
All right. So like, let's start with shows.
Yes.
So, like a newscaster.
Yeah. So Chad does have a video that we did a while back where he goes over his top 5, like most important things, but I feel like getting a perspective from Amy would be really helpful for a lot of people because she was a part of that for 10 years.
Yeah. We still occasionally do shows just to like clear out inventory because sometimes we accumulate a lot of pens around here that are finished and we're like, what are we going to do with these? So we'll go do a festival because they're fun too. And I remember the first year or 2 of doing them, they were really fun because it was new. And then after a while, if you've been doing it for a while, they kind of turn into a grind. But there are a lot of things that we found that, like if you've done them by the end of the weekend, you're like, oh, I'm so tired.
They are exhausting.
But some of the things that really helped us at shows, I think the biggest things that I noticed that really made a difference for us, actually one of the biggest ones, is if you have a table at a show, make sure that you elevate your table up so that folks don't have to bend way down to look at things. And then don't sit down. Like Carrie and I are sitting down right now.
We're not being good examples.
But like at a show when lots of folks are like walking past and walking through, if they see you sitting in a camp chair, I feel like there's this unspoken, they don't want to make you get up because you're resting. And so they won't kind of approach. Like I feel like I've noticed it. And so we would take like a stool And it's like hard to stand for 12 hours in a day, right? Especially if you're like out on the pavement. So we would kind of take turns. We'd have one like director's chair and then one stool. So you could kind of lean and it didn't really look like you were sitting down. You were like definitely much more upright. And that was super helpful, I think, just for engagement, for people walking up and like engaging and talking to you. Because once you get somebody engaged, that's a huge thing. And for us, we always tried to have like a story because Chad is really good at tinkering with lots of different things. And so there is a story with a lot of the pens that he has made over the years. Like we set some out today.
Like everybody's seen the watch part pens. Those come from Chad loving old crap, basically.
Yeah.
Vintage stuff. He's always been a collector of that kind of thing. And vintage stocks and bonds, there's a story and there's history behind it and there's a lot of intrigue. And if you get people who are like, oh, that's a real stock, or oh, that's something that's actually from whatever state or place that they're from, like it really holds something near and dear for them.
And why you care about it. Like Chad he used to be a financial advisor. He was a stockbroker. So like all of the stocks, he was super interested in it. And then it made it easier for us to talk to people about it when they were at our table. Because like, oh, hey, check this out. And a lot of times people won't know when they're looking at a pen, especially if they're not familiar with lathes or pens or anything like that. They'll be like, wait, you made that? You turned it on a lathe? Something that we did at a lot of the shows that I do believe was helpful, but I have no proof that it was helpful, is we would put up pictures of him turning, actually probably pictures that Carrie took of him turning. We got them big and we'd put them up behind us in the booth. And we didn't do this, but I think it's a good thing to do. We did it at some of the evening shows that we did, but get good lighting. Like you can get magnetic lighting that comes down and like really showcases what you've got on the table.
Yeah.
And we did other stuff besides just pens. It was primarily pens, but we did a little bit of jewelry as well. And some like houseware stuff. Chad used to make these really cool lamps.
Yeah, I should have bought one of those because they're gone.
No, I should have saved one and
There
for
you go.
us. But
like the whole what that boils down to is it was something that he was really passionate about, the elements that went into his work. So it kind of sold it for people, was how passionate he was, and visually seeing the process, because people don't know what you went through.
Yeah. And we would always kind of have categories on the table, like all the bolt actions would be in one area, all of the stocks would be in one area, all of the stamps would be in one area. So you kind of have like little areas where you can tell a story. Another thing that I think is super helpful is to just be really organized with your table, such that if someone buys a pen and then it's empty and you have a hole on your table, you're pulling another pen from underneath and keeping it like right there. So everything always looks really full and nice and pleasing to the eye. Getting things that elevate your work up.
Yeah,
that's
having
helpful.
some dimensions.
We would always give a box, like upgrade to a box for free. People liked that because then it like triggers their mind to think about like, oh, this is a gift. I always had a polish rag in my back pocket so that anytime somebody bought something, you would polish it really well and shine it up before you put it in the box or as you were putting it in the box. I think that's a good tip too that I don't always see, because we like to go to festivals too, and we like to buy pens from makers, and I don't always see that. So I think that one's a good tip too if pens is your jam.
Is there any questions or any feedback in the chat?
We comment about having a higher chair.
The higher chair?
Stay
Yeah.
on your feet on it.
Yeah, no, because nobody wants to stand for that long. But if you have a higher chair, it creates this illusion that you're kind of standing up.
Yeah, the stool especially, because if you're just leaning on it, there's no back, so you can easily just stand from there. That definitely helps.
Yeah, the higher director's chair too. Even if you are sitting down, like it's less sitting down than you're in a camp chair. It just, people come up more because of it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the ones that Chad talked about in his video was having things that draw people into the table. Like he would do snake skin pens, and he had like a snake that, oh, here's the snake. And then they'd be walking by and then they'd be like, what is that? I got to go look at that. And then once they come in, you've hooked them in and you can talk to them about like your art. So having things like that.
This next to all of the pens that were made from actual snake skin, if they're like, oh, cool snake, and you're like, yeah, these are made. Like it's a conversation starter. It also scares me from time to time when I see it in the shop.
Yeah, that's fair. We have rattlesnakes here, and
They're no joke.
no, you don't want to mess with the snakes around here.
We have a question about pricing.
Yeah.
Just
Is it just general?
How do you price them? And along the same lines, do you think you get better sales if you're letting people handle the products?
Yeah.
do you want to repeat the question?
Yeah. Better sales if people are handling the products. I think that is definitely a thing. One of the advantages of having your table elevated higher is it's less likely to have smaller kids like touching and grabbing things. And we just were real careful to like watch people as they were handling things. And if people were being really rough or there was a kid, we didn't tell kids they couldn't touch things, but if somebody was being disrespectful, we'd be like, hey, can you not? And that happens sometimes, and that's generally not going to be the person who's buying anything from you. But people don't know that maybe it's twist, so they'll like pull, and every once in a while you'll have threads that are toasted and like you're done. But even just when people pick them up, just like letting them know like, hey, it's a twist cap. And look, it posts on the back, and like showing people, because they do appreciate being able to pick things up. So I think that does help a lot.
A lot of times, even in store here, because we get a lot of people who are newer, and if they're picking up like one of the juniors, I'll pick up one too, and I'll be like, this is how it opens and it posts. So you can demonstrate it for them. And it's not to insult them, like, I would assume you wouldn't know how to do this. It's just to like lead them so that they are aware.
Yeah, because sometimes people will just pull. But sometimes people will be like, I don't know. And then, like, if you're showing them, like, hey, open it like this, it's a good way to do it.
And people like, I remember we had a little notepad. People like to be able to feel how they write, which you can't really do with, like, fountain pens unless you're really committed to that mess later on. But you can do it with the roller balls, and people like to see how they write and feel how they write. And then they're more likely to buy it because especially Chad would always put upgraded inks in his pens and they write like butter and it's amazing. So
And with fountains, I know multiple makers who are local who are amazing and sell their work. And somebody just told me the other day that they totally keep one fountain with them always so that people can try and write with the fountain pen. And you can let them know like this is that one that's inked, this is like a medium nib or this is a fine nib. And I think that could be really helpful.
that's really smart.
And then pricing. Pricing is like this super controversial subject, I think, because some people have formulas for it and all this jazz. One of Chad's biggest things is he thinks you should have like some very high priced pens on the table. Generally on our table, we only have a few very high priced pens, and they're like more elevated up where it's harder to reach them.
Sometimes they're in like a plastic, like an acrylic case.
Yeah, you can do
Depending
that.
on the level of price.
Yeah, or in like a very, very fancy box, like sitting in or on a very, very fancy box that's just closer so that you can keep an eye on it. But I would say that the bread and butter of what Chad sold, because we sold a lot of pens over the years, probably the bread and butter was probably like $65 to $85 for like a cigar. But if it was like a cigar or a bolt action, maybe $75. What did I just say? 65 to 85?
Like for your Monarch Sierra series, like, and I feel like there was quite a range. There were some that were in the 150 to 200 range, and then there were different tiers.
Yes.
And having those lower price point ones made it more accessible to people.
Yeah, just for like basic stuff. But that was like, we sold a ton at that price point. Like this, it's just a resin blank and a cigar pen, and we would sell that probably for like $70. But then having some that are like multiple hundreds of dollars on the table as well. And if it's something that took you a longer amount of time or is made out of something really special, those are more, right? That was the bread and butter of like, we sold a lot of volume of that, but we also sold a lot in the like $80 to like $135 range as well. So it just depends. And then the watch part pens, those are really time consuming. So those are always more. Those are like multiple hundreds.
Yeah.
But I think Chad's, what does he always say? Like, if somebody can say, oh, I could get a pen for $65, that pen maker, they make stuff for $1,000, but I got one for $65 from the same maker. That helps. And then something that we've employed at the last few shows, we didn't always do it, but more like as we kind of were doing lots of shows and had some pens maybe that we'd had a long time and we were like, we just need to get rid of these. We always have one small like $25 rack of just like sometimes things that we just are like, we just need to get rid of this now because it's been, nobody's buying it. It's been around for a while. And that's always really popular too. And you can move through a lot of inventory with that. But everybody, you have to choose your own prices. And if you're doing like bespoke stuff that takes longer, those pens are obviously going to be much more. Most of what we sold was kit pins.
Yeah. One other thing that he did that was funny is he would have like one pen for $10 somewhere in there, and it would have a tag on it, but you'd have to pick it up. And he'd like make a big deal about it when they'd pick it up. He'd be like, oh, you got the $10 one or whatever price point. And they'd be like, that's so awesome. That person would always buy that pen.
Yeah. Super fun. And just talking to people and engaging with them and trying to have fun.
Yeah.
I like to hear about what people make, and like inevitably you'll also hear people say, oh yeah, my uncle makes pens, or like you always get into cool conversations with people, I feel like.
And it should be fun. Like it should be, you should have fun talking to people. That's kind of the whole point, is it's networking and getting your name out there. They might not buy something from you that day, but they'll look for you at the next one.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about credit card or debit card
Yeah,
processing?
that's on our list.
Totally is on the list. Yeah, so in the early days, I think if I remember right, we used Square. You should definitely have it. It's a good thing. Make sure that you're being able to take payments digitally. That's huge.
Venmo or Zelle, like whatever you want to use, just make sure you have like a great internet connection or enough data or whatever, so you don't get hung up on the details after you've like basically made the sale. Because people generally don't carry cash.
It's nice when they have cash though, which is lovely. Make sure you have like a bag or a box that has good change in it. I think that's big.
And like a backup charger for your phone, for your Square, because that will drain your battery real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, so having that, and like we've been at festivals before where we've had other people come work with us because it's so busy and we have multiple tables on a corner that we have like one person who's just constantly ringing people up, and then a couple other people who are standing and like talking to people and engaging them at big festivals where like thousands of people roll through. I think that's another good point to bring up, is finding like the shows that are right for you. And I think if you can find art shows, if you're doing pens, I think they do better than like craft shows.
Yes. There's definitely a different client base for a craft show versus an art show.
I think so.
People go to art shows and they are prepared to spend money, generally. Like higher amounts of money. At craft shows, you can sell like your slim lines, your monarchs, your lower price point pens. You can probably do really well with that. But at an art show, if you really want to sell some like higher end pens, you might have better luck there.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Mark them what you want to mark them. Somebody was showing me something the other day, and they were like, I was on vacation and I saw these in a case at the hotel that I was at, and it was a slim line, and it was like $125 for this slim line. And it's just funny because like we know, right? And it wasn't anything fancy. It was just, I mean, it was pretty wood, but it was just like a wood blank slim line with a really large price on it. And
but it was meaningful to them because they got it on vacation, I assume?
They didn't buy it. They saw it for sale in a case. So someone was selling their slimline for that much. I don't think we've ever sold a slimline for that much, but I was like, more power to that person.
I wonder what the wood was.
Also, if you're super into like that kind of stuff, there is a book, I think it's called The Psychology of Persuasion But it's a book. It's all kind of about marketing things. And I read it years and years ago, but I remember in that book, he tells a story about how there was a jewelry store that was having a really hard time selling their jewelry. And they were like, we keep marking things down. We keep having like 75% off sale. Like nobody's buying anything. And the psychologist came in and was like, oh no, you actually need to like take everything off of sale and then mark a bunch of things like way up. And then they were like selling through things like mad because there's perceived value that people have in things. So don't undercut your prices. Sometimes in the store, people tell me how much they're selling things for. And I'm like, you need to up your price because like that's an amazing pin and you could get a lot more for that. Like you want to get paid for the time and your expertise. Like that's important. You should get paid for those things.
And the value.
People are happy to pay for it because a lot of us are super into supporting makers and supporting artists and like they want to pay you for your time. So don't be afraid to put a good price on there.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the question was. Did we answer the question?
Yeah, good.
Probably in a circle.
We went around in circles.
What about bringing duplicates?
Yes.
Yes.
Duplicates is great. And that's where you have them underneath. And then as soon as that one sells, then you set the next one out. Yeah. Yeah, because if you're at a really busy show, you gotta have a lot of duplicates.
Yeah.
We would always try and keep track too of what sold. We didn't have a super good system for it, but it would be like in a notebook. And every time something would sell, we would write it down. So we could kind of go back and like see trends.
Which is also highly important because I was at home managing the Etsy and they were selling stuff. And so I would tell them, you need to write it down. You need to take a photo. You need to tell me so that you could take it off, especially if it's a not repeatable one. If it's just one that you can knock out all day, great. But managing multiple sales avenues is really important.
Oh, yeah.
Which we haven't talked about, but...
Which totally brings us to the next point.
Yep.
Which is have something out on your table where you can collect people's information. So you can send them a newsletter. Or have a QR code on your table so that they can like follow you right then on Instagram. I think that's actually really powerful. And I, as a shopper, really like that when I can go follow somebody's Instagram right then instead of just having a card. They'll be like, I don't have a QR code, but I have a card. And a card is good too. But having QR codes out is really good because once you're on their gram, then you're in their feed. And you're being reminded. And it's kind of cool. We had a lot of customers that would buy from us year after year.
Yeah. They would look for us.
Yeah, they would look for us.
Yeah.
You worked Tempe with us a couple times,
I worked
didn't
a couple
you?
Gilbert and a couple Tempe.
Yeah.
We were kind of petering out of that at that point.
Yeah.
Chad got really busy.
Yeah.
And then we stopped doing as many shows just out of necessity.
Basically, once Turner's Warehouse started doing well because of all of you, thank you.
Yes.
Then it was less time for finished goods.
But like essentially you have to have multiple avenues of like revenue. So not just the shows, not just reaching out on social medias. You should also have a website or some way of like selling online. It can be Etsy, it can be Facebook Marketplace, whatever it is, but that will really help up your brand value and help people see what you do. Social media is very important, and I know not a lot of us love doing it, especially for a business, because it's a lot. It's a lot of work, and it's invisible work. But Amy kills it with ours. She's on there pretty much all the time.
Except for lately. I've been like, we're so busy in the store.
Yeah.
I try though, and I like engaging with folks on the media. That part's fun. Sometimes making graphics and all that is like real time consuming.
Yeah.
But I hear that it's getting better with the AI that's out there that can help you out with that stuff.
Yeah. Should we talk about AI?
I've tried to use AI some, but I don't know if it's that I'm not as talented with it yet or it's just not quite there yet for visual stuff. But there are a lot of great programs out there. Like we use Canva, which is really great.
Canva's awesome.
For like making graphics, and I know Canva can also help make auto graphics for you and is starting to incorporate some AI stuff into their interface as well.
Even just like, doesn't Facebook have it in there? Like all of the Meta stuff has AI in there, so you can use that, manipulate it however you want. I find, because I use it sometimes for wording on different things, and I generally will change it a bit because it doesn't sound like us. Like you want to put stuff in your own voice because otherwise it's just a machine making it, really.
Let's talk about Etsy.
Let's talk about Etsy. We're just kidding. Amy's like, I don't know.
Let's talk about Etsy. So Carrie's like an Etsy whiz because she's been doing it for Chad for so many years.
I mean, I would roll back the whiz. I would say I've managed his Etsy. Chad set it up and he managed it successfully before I jumped on board. And then when I came on, I did a lot of stuff for him, but I mostly kept his like recipe of kind of a series of photos to show the pen, to show how it looks, and then some words about what it is and telling a story in the description about, I'm a small maker, this is handmade, everything I do is unique, like just kind of telling who he was and his journey a little bit. Because it's online, they don't know who you are. It's not like they're approaching you at an art show. They don't know that you're a person who made it. And especially with Etsy more recently, it's a little bit harder to find the actual makers. So you want to make sure you tell your story so people know that you are a real person.
Etsy is one of those things that I think makers like, it's like a love-hate thing with Etsy because Etsy takes such a big cut and it's hard. I think when Etsy was early, it was more all handmade stuff.
Yeah.
And now it's harder for people to find things sometimes that are like not drop shipped kind of a thing. But it can still be helpful because it can help drive to your website.
Yes, and it's a really great way to keep a catalog of everything that you've done as well. It's very helpful. You do want to work on your keywords and like your SEO to help the search engine bring people to you. You can use basic generic keywords, but it's not necessarily going to get the specifics of what you're working on. So we always would put like handmade and that kind of stuff, even on Etsy where things were supposed to be handmade.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then a big part of Etsy is you got to kind of figure out your price point. There is a big cut for Etsy. There's a big push for the Etsy makers to have free shipping, which, as we all know, is not free.
Shipping is actually not free.
Not free. So you got to work that into your price or be okay with that, taking a little bit more of a cut out of it. But I found a big part of that is the customer response. So, and I'm not as good at it anymore because we're busy. But I do try and go in there every day to like respond to customers and make sure that they're taken care of. And that's a really big aspect of just running any kind of a business is the customer support. And that's a big part of what Turner's Warehouse has kind of tried to develop is having really good customer support and really good customer service. We all worked at a company that we won't name that is very, when we were in college, that was very strict on customer service. So we all kind of have this background of customer first and making sure we reply to people and you under promise, over deliver. So
Yeah.
Real quick question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think mixing things up like pens and other small turned items with larger ones like bowls is beneficial, or is it better to focus on just one?
That's a great idea. I think that if you diversify your offerings, it's always a good thing. Like, especially if it's something that you enjoy doing. It doesn't, like pens don't have to be your one and only thing that you're working on. You can do pens, you can do tops, you can do jewelry, you can do bowls, you can do pepper mills, you can do all sorts of things. And it kind of adds a little bit more visual interest to your craft table if you're at a show or to your actual online listings. So, yeah.
And know the rules of the show before going in.
That's really important.
Because like a lot of shows are juried, and so you are only allowed to have on the table like certain things. We were at Tempe Festival one year and we had some jewelry out, and they came and they were like, you need to take that down.
Yeah.
Because you were not in the jewelry category and you are in the mixed media category and you're doing pins, and that's it. So just knowing that before you go in to any festival or art show, like And if you plan on doing multiple things, like making sure that you let them know and that you're submitting really good photos
Yes.
of multiple things. Because a lot of the really good shows that get you a lot of money are the ones that are juried and kind of a little bit harder to get into.
Yeah. I mean, they're a little bit more prestigious, so it makes sense. And jewelry is a hard category to get into because there are so many amazing jewelry makers that sticking with like a mixed media like pens and bowls is good. Is a good option. Is there another question?
Any experience with custom orders on Etsy?
Custom orders on Etsy. Yes. It's it depends on if it's like a quantity thing or if it's like a repeat of one that you've already done, something completely new. It's relatively easy to submit a custom order to the customer. If you have messaging, you can just do it through the messaging app. But yeah, we've done quite a few of those in the past, and they're cool. Like if a customer has already bought from us and they reach out and they're like, hey, I want 10 more for blah, 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 whatever event. And you're like, fantastic. And you send them an invoice for those 10 pens, and then you can get paid.
I think, and I don't know, you guys can tell me if this is right or wrong, but I think a lot of makers, when they first start selling stuff, they take a lot of custom orders, and then as time progresses, they don't take as many custom orders.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it's hard. I think for artists, and I always call Chad an artist, and he's like, I'm not,
He's an artist.
what does he say, woodworker? I don't know. But I think for artists, sometimes it's hard to do commissions because that customer has in their mind exactly what they want, and maybe that's not what you want to make. That sounds silly, but it might not be what you want to make, or it might not be your style. Kind of like if you go to get a tattoo, and like the tattoo artist, like they have their style, and like a good tattoo artist hopefully is going to be like, I don't want to do that one, because like you're finding something that's in between their style and your style. And if you can find that in between where like it's a little bit of both and you're both happy with it, that's great. It's not always that way. Sometimes people just have like this very specific set idea of what they want. And so I think sometimes over time, makers will make less custom orders.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because some makers, all they do is custom orders. So I think it's up to you and your tolerance level. I know Chad is definitely a maker where he's like, I want to make what I want to make.
Yeah.
Because he makes good stuff when he's in flow and he's having fun. And he doesn't want to be told what to make, which I totally get.
There's a lot of times where it's time is the main issue for him. And
Totally.
Yeah. So like in the past, we've kind of slowed on customs because of time and availability. But another factor is the design. So kind of like what Amy is saying, sometimes things require a lot of initial work to do the one. And if he's not going to repeat that one, he's not going to do that initial work because it's not worth the investment of time for whatever he would sell it for. So you have to judge if it's something you want to do. I know a lot of people who do like rings, they will do custom orders because those are like custom sizes. But yeah.
It's way quicker to do a ring sometimes than it is to do like something that's bigger and more intricate.
Rings, easy peasy. But like for a pen, especially if they're really specific about what they want, sometimes it can be complicated, like Amy was saying. So use your best judgment. You could try it out a couple times and see if it's something you like doing.
Yeah, what have you guys done?
Yeah. Do we have any other questions
Some
before?
more
we move on?
questions specific to shows. Any tips when applying to be a vendor to a show?
Yes.
Take really, really good photographs of your work.
Yes.
And try to take like a good, like if you do a lot of different types of pens, have like a good
Visual
variety.
representation of all of it. Yeah.
That's the word that I'm looking for. Have good variety. But I think really a huge part of it is about taking good photos. A huge part of it is taking good photos.
It
I
is.
think.
And you can take really good photos with a cell phone. I prefer using a DSLR just because I'm a little bit snotty because I have a photography background. But there are so many good editing tools online But taking really good quality photos, you can do that really well with like an iPhone that we're videoing this on right now. Like you can take really good quality. You just have to make sure you have a right setup. And we can talk more in depth about photography in a minute, but I do also have a video from like last year where we talk about like the top 5 tips for photos. But
I think taking good photos. I also think if you have the time, like, and you're thinking about a certain show, go check out that show, right? And if you see another person who's there that does something similar to you, see what they have on their table predominantly, and then like
Fill the
adjust
void.
your resume, if you will, or your application based on that.
Yeah.
Like I know we've walked through shows before where there will be people who are also predominantly only selling pens, but it's all wood pens. So then like we might go in and show a lot of different stuff that's not wood. So I think getting a feel for the show, I think that's a good way to do it too. And there are shows that we like to go to, but then we're like, I don't think that this would be like our show.
Yeah.
So going out and checking them out ahead of time, having good photos, having good descriptors.
Yeah, like it takes a lot of initial work to like really write out a good description of your work, but it's really important and it helps people know who you are. So telling your story.
Telling the story.
Yeah.
The story's huge. And like this is gonna seem silly, but having good grammar and punctuation and all of that stuff like on your application,
Yes.
I think those things go a long way too.
Yeah. Pop it in AI. I'm just kidding. Write it in your own voice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So along the same
Yeah.
lines, I just lost it. What other rules for shows should I know about so that I know what to ask?
Ooh.
It just depends on the show. I think you gotta go and like
You gotta read their,
you gotta read their stuff and
information.
research it and
because shows are all over the board as far as their rules. Like some are really, really strict and some are a lot more open. It just depends on which show it is. There's so many different factors.
and sometimes depending on the size of the show, it might be multiple people that are kind of in charge of picking things. Well, obviously, if there's a jury, multiple people on that jury are going to look at your stuff. But oftentimes at shows, especially if it's like smaller, there's one person who's kind of heading up all of it. And so, like me personally, if I was at a show, like if I was at the Gilbert show or the Scottsdale show or whatever show, if I was at a show that I was like, I think I might like to do this show, I might ask around to the vendors there and be like, hey, is the person who organized this event, are they around? And then just introduce yourself, because I think that like having a relationship with people in person is so powerful, right? So just like if back in the day, I don't know if kids still do this when they go to get an initial job, but like
don't.
you put your resume in, but you also try and go say hello. And they're busy, right? A lot of times they have their own booth at a show or they're trying to like take care of vendors, but just really quickly, like introducing yourself, being really friendly and kind of like getting that face-to-face networking or that face-to-face with the person, I think can be really helpful.
Yeah.
If we were trying to get into new shows, I would employ that for sure.
It's a lot of schmoozing.
Yeah, because then like when they see your application later, they're gonna be like, oh yeah, I met them. They were super nice.
Yeah.
And that like, it's a good first impression, I think.
Yeah.
What about pricing art show versus Etsy?
So pricing art show versus Etsy, generally with online selling like Etsy or any of the ones that take a cut, we might bump it up a little bit, especially if there's free shipping involved. I feel like Chad and Amy are a little bit more inclined to do deals in person.
That's totally true.
Yeah. So like in person, if you're like, this pen is $150 online,
Carrie's head is exploding.
my
because
head
we're
is
like,
exploding and
yeah.
they're selling it for less than I want them to. It's fine. So if it's $150 online, as an example, they might sell it for like $120 at a show. You don't have the fees, you don't have the shipping. It's just, it depends on your comfort level. So if you don't want to have any wiggle room, you want to keep it all consistent, that's cool. But a lot of the online places will take a pretty sizable cut, so just keep that in mind.
I think one of the biggest things I've seen just talking to makers over the years, like being here at Turner's and like knowing a lot of the people, because now we have like wonderful friends from doing festivals and doing art shows, and just like wonderful people in our life because they had the booth that was down the way and they do something totally different from us. I lost my train of thought. I was just thinking about my friends and I'm like, good people.
Pricing.
Oh yeah, pricing.
Half of my job is to help them come
Rein
back.
it in. Yeah. What was I talking about? I don't know.
Pricing, Amy, pricing.
Pricing, people. I don't know. I lost it.
Love it. Any
I
other
lost it.
questions?
Sorry.
Along the same lines with art shows, do you recommend keeping a detailed inventory so you know what sells and
Yes.
what is less popular?
Keep a detailed inventory, especially if you're just getting into it or if you're at different shows. Keep track of what sells at those shows, because you might have one show where you sell like 100 bolt actions and another one where you sell like juniors. It just depends on where you are. So definitely I would, as the organized crazy person in this shop, I would keep track of all of it. And when we did go to shows, I would try and keep track of all of it. But if you don't want to, if you just want to go by your memory or by vibes of the place, again, everybody's different. So I would keep track.
It's hard to predict too
Yeah.
with shows. Like one year at the
There's no
exact same
predicting.
festival, you'll sell a ton of bolt actions, and then the next year you'll sell hardly any.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So you
It's
don't want to
very
like
hard
paint
predict.
yourself into a corner.
Yeah.
You still want to have variety, but like if you do sell a lot of one particular pen at one show, take a few extras of those so that you have more available, but don't discount the rest of your work.
I totally remember what I was going to say. So we know all these amazing people, and I've talked to so many makers because like there are tons of small businesses that shop from us here at Turner's. And like there's a theme that like really good artists sometimes like undersell their work. So I just cannot impress upon you enough, like get paid for your time and get paid for your expertise of what you do, because what you do only you can do, and it's like unique to you, and you should get compensated for that. So feel proud about it and be like, yeah, be proud and put a good price on it so that you are getting compensated.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, what's that saying? The starving artist. Don't be that. Be the like business savvy artist who's
Yeah.
like doing well.
One of the things that is kind of unique for Chad, just knowing a lot of people who are in the art world, is he has both the business mind and the artist mind. And a lot of people are either very heavily in the artist mind or heavily in the business mind. So you kind of have to train yourself in the area that you're not as inclined in.
Yeah. And like ask other people, right? Like
Yeah. Build your network.
build your network. There are some cool people you can meet out and about. That's the
Yeah.
other thing. If you make friends if there's a show that you do all the time, you make friends with other vendors. Other vendors will be like, yeah, go check out Chad's work down there. Go talk to Chad and Amy. And we'll be like, go down there, like, go see Bob. He makes amazing cutting boards. Or, like, go see Erin. She makes amazing jewelry. Like, it's cool. And if you are in, like, for us, like, this metropolis, it's like you see the same people, like, that kind of travel around for all the shows. And we've even made friends with people from out of state, because a lot of people for the big shows, they travel for the shows. So they'll be coming from, like, back east to do Tempe Festival and things like that. It's kind of fun.
Yeah. But you got to it takes some time to build that network and to build that little community of your artists, but that is really important. Are there any other questions for the moment?
What are we doing?
Yes. Can you talk about customer support? So say somebody buys a pen at your show, but then is maybe not happy with the product or has a question about them. How do you deal with that?
So for customer support, generally, like, I mean, if you're a small maker, you might have your own personal cell phone number on your like business card, right? Or it might be your Instagram. I would just encourage you to respond timely and to be courteous. And generally we come with the assumption that they are, wanting help and they like the product and they want help. But if they're like super unhappy, we just try and do what we can to make them happy and to like find a resolution that doesn't cross a boundary for us for cost, but also like gives them what they need.
And sometimes it will. Sometimes like that's just part of any business and doing business.
Yeah.
Like sometimes things will happen, something will break, like you'll have to replace it. And sometimes people will be cranky. That's also just part of doing business.
We find that, sorry.
I feel like it's fewer and far between. And I will say that, like, over the years, especially with the pens, like, we tried to make things that were of quality, right? And, like, what we sell at Turner's, we try and make sure the kits that we bring in for you all are, like, of good quality, so you guys aren't running into lots of problems when you sell the pens, because we know, because we've walked that path. So, but it happens. Like, it happens, and you got to fix it. And I think what Carrie said about being timely is, like, super important.
I find that if somebody is upset, as much as I hate talking on the phone, I will ignore my sister's phone calls. But if there's an issue, I will call the person and talk to them, because email and written communication, so much can be misinterpreted. And if you want to establish a good relationship with a customer, and especially if it's somebody who's unhappy, you want to call them or reach out to them in some way where you can get voice to voice and resolve whatever's going on, talk through, ask a lot of questions to figure out, like, the root of what's actually happening. Like, if they're like, my pen's broken, like, okay, can you tell me what happens when you do this? Can you tell me what, just it depends on the pen, but I feel like
a lot of times it's not broken.
A lot of times it's not broken, but if it's, like, for the shop, if people call and they're like, I don't have all of the parts for my pen kit, and I'll pull up the instructions and look at the parts with them and have them send a picture of the parts. And a lot of time I'll be like, okay, I see the part that we're missing and it's just threaded or whatever. But I'm not going to be a jerk about it. I'm just going to be like, okay, we figured this out. And it's something that happens a lot because a lot of people are trying pens that they haven't tried, which will be the same for people who are using your work. Like, it might be something they haven't tried before. Sorry, I'm playing footsie with Amy. And they might just not know how something works. So asking questions, talking to them voice to voice, but mostly, like, reach out to them quickly, because people are, I don't know, they just want response. That's a big part of it. They want to be acknowledged that there's a problem and help them.
Yeah. I think talking on the phone, like, that's a really good tip, is to call instead of trying to go back and forth in email.
Any other questions?
That one.
How much does it cost for a table at a show on average?
That depends. So sometimes you will get into a show and it'll be like $30, and then sometimes you'll pay $1,000 for your table.
Yeah.
And something that is a funny thing at shows is people will talk about making booth, and it's real funny. And Chad and I always used to joke, because we'd be at shows and people would be like, yeah, I'm really happy I made booth. And we're like, if we only make booth, we are not happy at all, because we spent all this time and all this effort. Like, you want to make well past your booth. So now it's like a big joke that we, like, giggle with each other about making booth. And with other folks who do shows. But yeah, it really depends. Some of the shows are quite pricey to get into. And
some are 1 day and some are 3 day and some are week. Like, it varies pretty wildly.
Yeah. Yeah, it really depends. So start out, if it's in your area, like, going to check some of them out, asking some of the vendors, like, inquiring about it. Yeah. And like one year we double booked ourselves, and we had Tempe Festival of the Arts, which is, like, one of the largest ones in the West, actually. It's very big, and, like, thousands of people roll through there every year. And I think at the time, maybe it was like $600 for a table, which is a lot. It's a lot of money. But it is multiple days. But it was great because I was in Gilbert, and I just have to brag. If Chad watches this back later. Chad was in Tempe because it was
I was with Chad in Tempe.
Chad was, and then I had one of my friends from, like, I'm a therapist by trade, so one of my social work friends was with me in Gilbert at a little show that was like $35 or $40 for us to have our table. We're at the art market in Gilbert that's adjacent to the farmer's market, which farmer's markets can be killer. But so we're adjacent to the farmers market, and I was out selling them in Tempe.
She was texting us live updates.
We were just selling, we
were so mad at you.
It was awesome. And I was like, haha, I'm in Gilbert. I'm out selling you.
Yeah, and then she came by and boasted later in person.
And I'm still boasting, and it's years later. But it was just funny because you would think that Tempe would be so much more. And on the whole, Tempe was very much more. But in 4 hours at this little show that was like a $40 table, we did like a lot. It was great. It was just like one pen after the next, after the next, after the next.
That show,
awesome.
Gilbert Chad had been at for years and years and years. So like people sought out his booth. So I feel like really Chad won.
That's legit. That's another good thing about shows too, is if you go to one show regularly, like it'll pay off over time, right? Like, because people will see you, especially if it's like farmers market adjacent, which the Gilbert show that we did is farmers market adjacent. So people would come because they are going to the farmers market every weekend, and then they'd have you in their mind for when the holidays come or when they need a graduation gift or whatever. And then they'd seek you out. So even if you didn't do good one day, you might really kill it on another day. Because in Gilbert, we were paying for the whole season at once. So
some of the smaller shows do that, right?
Yeah, where you can pay for the whole season.
Yeah. So check out the shows in your area, and I guess you could probably, I don't know if they publish the costs or if you have to reach out to them, but you can kind of gauge which ones you want to do by that. But,
do you guys have any tips?
yeah, what are your guys' tips?
What successes have people had out there selling stuff?
Do we have any other questions right now, Mike? No? Oh, man.
It's a lot of talking. We're out almost an hour.
So we've got, so do you want to, let's talk a little bit about social media, because we touched on it a little bit, but there's a lot that you can do with that. There's a lot of outreach you can do with that. Choosing the right platform for your artwork is great. Like TikTok is one that a lot of the youths like.
The youths.
Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram. Pinterest?
Some people do well putting their stuff on Pinterest. Okay. I haven't played with Pinterest really, but posting to multiple places, and there are software? I don't know. See, this is where I'm talking and I'm like, I am not an expert. There are programs where you can use one program to post to all of the different social media, which is kind of nice. However, I think from doing our social media at Turner's, I think that each social media is really different. So like what you post on Facebook might be different from what you post on TikTok, or what you post on Instagram might be different from what you post on TikTok, because it's like different type of audiences.
You also don't want to, a lot of people who follow us on Instagram also follow us on Facebook. You don't want to bombard people with the same content over and over.
Sorry, guys. It's what I do. It's what I do.
Oh, wow.
No, I generally post the same things on Instagram and Facebook, and it's easy because I do it kind of on the back end, and they post to both.
Which is very helpful, but then you can keep things fresh with other channels. Yeah. But what do you guys like using the best for your work? Do you like using Instagram, Facebook? Do you have any famous TikTokers?
I feel like there are some folks who like kill it on TikTok. There's a guy who I always sometimes see on TikTok, and he'll be on late at night, and he turns handles for shaving brushes, and it seems like he does really well.
Yeah, I think I've seen his stuff actually.
Yeah. And then I'm like, why is it trying to show me work turning content while I'm trying to watch videos of silly dogs?
Yeah.
But yeah, so kind of finding your audience in that way.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about frequency?
I will tell you this. I have no idea about frequency. Like, if you read articles and take trainings and do stuff, they'll be like, post 4 times a day. And I'm like, that's ridiculous. I'm not doing that. I think what I have found to be the most helpful and also the most genuine for me is just to like be genuine and try and show things that also tell a story. Like, be yourself, be genuine, share a little bit about yourself, because I think that like that helps people connect with you and you connect with people. So if you're like, I'm not a social media person, like focus on the parts of social media that are awesome, which is like connection with other people, right? Like we've been able to connect with so many cool people through our social media channels, through YouTube, through Instagram, Facebook, like, and it's cool because then sometimes we get to meet people in person that we've been talking to for years online. And like, I think that there's like a community aspect that I really enjoy about it. And so I try and focus on that because I enjoy it. And I think if you're enjoying it, like that shows through. And I think as much as you can, and this takes more time, but if you're a maker, take little videos of yourself making things to like tell the story of what you're doing and post videos and reels and stuff like that of your process of making.
People want to see that.
That's cool. Like I want to see you make the thing that I'm going to buy from you, right?
I'm like, I work here, but I will watch videos of people turning at home, like just turning, because it's really cool to see, even though I could be doing it and just watching it. So sharing that process is kind of awesome.
Yeah. And another, just something that I've really found that I like, I do pay for it. I think it's like $60 a year. But there's a video editing thing called Splice. And I know you can do it in Instagram or Facebook. You can like edit within those. But I've found Splice to be very helpful for video editing. If you're going to be doing video editing on your phone. I keep waiting for them to update so that I can do the video edits on my computer as well. I know Chad's used LumaFusion a lot in the past and he really likes it. I think it's about finding the program that you like, that you can kind of learn it a little bit and then roll with it.
Yeah.
So like when I do our big video edits, I use iMovie because it's free and it's like,
it's easy.
It's easy and I know how to use it. And Chad's like, LumaFusion's really great. You should use it. And then I get frustrated because I'm like, I don't know how to use this program. So finding the one that works for you and rolling with it. But Splice, I will say, I've liked it. Yeah.
Any questions?
What about engagement? Is there a certain type of post that gets more engagement?
Yes, reels. For us at Turner's Warehouse, because we're not so much focused on like the completed anymore, because like we're not doing that. We're like focused on Turner's because that's where we're most busy. Reels, like videos. And videos we try, and this year we've changed up our hours this year so that we can do more videos because we want to build community and like put out valuable stuff for you guys. So
that is helpful.
Yeah, so that it's helpful. Or it's showing you something that's entertaining, I guess. So
You're the entertainment for today.
Today is entertainment.
The whole team is here today.
But yeah, it's interesting because I'll spend a ton of time in Canva like working on a graphic that is like a photo graphic, and then like it doesn't get nearly as much as engagement. But I will say this though, Chad and I just hit our 25th wedding anniversary and I posted that and that had the most engagement of anything. Well, and I was like, that figures, because like I feel like we get to know you guys and I feel like people kind of get to know us a little bit, which is cool. And so if you can be personal too, I think people like that. It seemed like people liked it. So if you wished us happy anniversary, thank you, because it like
there were so many.
It made my heart smile. I was like, no one's gonna look at this. And
you
like,
had your little baby picture of you and Chad as tiny babies 25 years ago.
I know. We need a picture because we knew Carrie back then too.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
We all worked together at Safeway.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Back in the day. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so we touched on a lot. So I guess for shipping is one thing that we didn't really talk about a lot. As you guys might know, I do a lot of shipping. So I have a fair amount of experience there. And I guess one of the biggest frustrations on the customer end is the lack of communication. So if you're like, oh, shoot, I need to make something to complete this order, communicate with them. Even if they don't ask, communicate with them. Let them know, be like, hey, it's going to take me like 2 days to ship this out. Then I'm going to drop it right at the post office. just so that they are aware. Like, even with people here, I might not do it as frequently as I should, but if things are delayed, I try and reach out to people so that they know, because expectations are really important. And if you lose that trust, then they won't shop from you anymore. Like,
That's a good point.
reviews. So a big part of being online is you will get reviews, and you will get people who are very happy with what you do, and you will get people who are displeased. And
Haters gonna hate,
but like, you can choose to respond to those people. You can choose to not respond to those people. That's up to you. I feel like it's not so much responding to a person who's unhappy as it is responding so that people who are thinking about shopping from you can see how you handle people who are unhappy. So if that's something you're thinking
Truth. Yeah.
about. Let's see.
I think that's a pretty good overview of
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that like we're
That's a
good
lot.
at and we know about.
Oh, yeah.
So our wrap up shows, do them. Tell us
them.
about them.
Yes.
We'll
Post pictures
share.
from them.
Yeah.
Like, post pictures of your setup, post pictures of your first sale of the day or whatever.
We have hanging on our wall in the office like a little note from a kid who was like, maybe 11, and he was just very excited. Anyway, he ended up wanting to buy a pen with like his Christmas money, and we gave him a good deal on a pen at a show, and he like wrote us a thank you note and
Like
brought
a
it back.
Physical note.
That was really
It's really
cute.
cute.
And then he's like, I brought you this coin because I thought you'd like it, and it's like hanging on the wall in our office. So just remembering that it's about connection, and I don't know why I told that story because I thought of it made my heart smile. But
It's cute.
yeah, go out there and sell your stuff
Yeah.
and
Let
price
us know
it well.
what works for you and what doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's all kind of a game.
And I don't know, we're not experts. We just have done this a lot. So we thought
Yeah.
we'd talk about the things that have worked for us. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I think is a huge philosophy of ours that we can kind of like wrap up on is just like, there's a lot of abundance out there. There's a lot of people who are looking to support makers. And there's enough for everybody, right? So like, we here tried to just come from an abundance mindset instead of a scarcity mindset, and I think that that is helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just keep making.
Um,
Any other?
yeah, keep making things. Chad's coming back next week. Hopefully we'll be doing a lot of bowl turning and fun turning. I don't know what the live stream's going to be, but I'm sure it'll be something fun. More videos to come in the future.
Yeah. Just a thank you to everybody for the open house. It was really awesome to
so
see
fun.
everybody in person, online. All of our presenters were amazing. Like, we had a really killer lineup.
We did have a good lineup.
We had a rep from Record Power and from Raycon and Easywood Tools. We had a forger in the back. We had a lot of, or bladesmith.
Yeah, bladesmith, forger.
We had a lot of people here and a lot of people online. So we really appreciate you guys in our community, and keep up the good work.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Mike, for modding.
Yay, Mike.
Bye, guys. Have a good
Bye.
day.